Hello, 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 hello. Jordan Sheridan. We're live on the Periscope. We're live on the YouTube. I think we're live on Facebook, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Let me make sure we're live on YouTube for my brethren. We are. Live on YouTube as well. It is quite a day. Quite a day. I'm coming to you a little later than normal, but I didn't want today to go without going live because holy cow! I mean, where do you start? Where do you start? You got the Trump media Titanic meltdown. I mean, yesterday and today is the most I've ever seen of Trump media hysteria. You got Brett Kavanaugh, who might be a key vote to overturn Roe v. Wade, would be a disaster for unions on the Supreme Court, would be a disaster for overturning Citizens United, would be a disaster all around. You have Bernie Sanders taking it to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, introducing the Bezos Act today, which I'm going to get to. You have something that I think got overlooked, but Chris Hedges, who is one of my heroes in progressive media and thought. He was on MSNBC, I think over the Labor Day weekend, so they must have not had any guests. I was surprised MSNBC brought somebody so truthful and accurate like Chris Hedges on, and boy, did he own MSNBC to the point where they visibly are trying to wrap the segment. We're going to get to all of that. And press the share button on Facebook. As always, they're not always sharing our content or making it easy for you to find me and know that I'm live. Also on YouTube, this is a super chat, as always. So if you're feeling super, let it rip. $1, $5, $10. We are actually planning a wider GoFundMe that we're going to launch next week. Ty is working on a video for that as we speak. So we're going to be doing a GoFundMe next week and some other exciting things. As always, we can't do this without you. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, definitely consider it. Here's the address, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. And as always, on YouTube, like I said, you could be a super viewer and leave contributions there. So, it pains me because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I attack the media for covering Trump 24/7, but I do think I need to begin tonight with Trump. It's not going to be long, but I can't ignore this. Ignore this. MacArthur Louisiant in the chat. Jordan, can you interview Sanders? MacArthur, do you think I might have reached out for an interview with Bernard Sanders in my day, MacArthur? Do you think I have? Yes, I can interview Sanders, and frankly, as humbly as I could say, I think I would do probably a better job than most people who have interviewed him. But we're not there yet. Let's see how it goes once we launch Status Coup, which of course we've been teasing, and we're going to have more information about that very, very soon. The website's almost done. And also, I don't want to get your hopes up, but I think there's a major story coming down the pike pretty soon. So stay tuned for more info on that. But I got to start with Trump because it's remarkable to me. Bob Woodward, obviously of Watergate fame, is teasing his new book that I believe is out next week. So he's teasing his new book, and it's called Fear, Trump, White House. And essentially, it's apparently deeper and better reported than Michael Wolff's book about Trump, which was essentially a giant Mean Girls aimed at Trump. Michael Wolff had people, mostly anonymous sources, as all these books are, calling him stupid and a moron and things we all know. But Woodward's book goes a little further. It quotes General Mattis as calling him an idiot with a 5th or 6th grade intelligence level. Jeff Sessions in the book Woodward quotes Trump as calling Jeff Sessions retarded, which is obviously not a word that anyone should use, and basically mocking him that he's Southern. In the book, it says that aides of Trump literally steal documents off his desk to try and stop him from signing things or making rash decisions. And basically, it says that Trump told Mattis, let's assassinate Assad. Let's just go in and assassinate him. And Mattis said, sure, we'll do that. And then after was like, we're not going to do any of that. Just a lot of stuff like that. And today, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but today, there was a New York Times op-ed. A New York Times op-ed. This is kind of unprecedented, actually. It's a New York Times op-ed from an anonymous source, from an anonymous senior administration source. So basically what you have is the New York Times giving a senior administration official anonymity to basically bash the president. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll look at just a little bit here. Headline, I am part of the resistance. And the New York Times says, the Times today is taking the rare step of publishing an anonymous op-ed essay. We have done so at the request of the author, a senior official in the Trump administration, yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to skip over the parts I think aren't relevant. To be clear, ours is not the popular resistance of the left. We want the administration to succeed and think that many of its policies have already made America safer and more prosperous. But we believe our first duty is to the country, and the president continues to act in a manner that is detrimental to the health of our republic. So I'm going to start right there. Isn't it rich? Isn't it rich that you have all these officials who they knew who Donald Trump was before the campaign? They knew who Donald Trump was during the campaign. They knew who Donald Trump was day of inauguration. This is not new information they're getting on President Trump. They wanted to help him deregulate the whole economy and stomp on you workers and progressives more. They wanted to give giant tax cuts to the billionaires, the corporations, and themselves. And they knew who Donald Trump was. And now, apparently, it's like you could know something, but until you see it, that apparently stirs some level of craze. So you have, I'm not going to read the rest of this op-ed, but basically the op-ed says he's immoral, he makes impulsive and catastrophic decisions, he's a danger to the country, and the administration officials, instead of the administration officials, many of which feel this way and include, they're not putting it in there, but you would assume Mattis, you would assume Jeff Sessions, you would assume Cohn, who left, you would assume Steve Mnuchin, I'm assuming Pence. You would assume they all feel this way. So my question is very simple. And again, I'm not defending Trump. I think he is a danger. I really do. And he's obviously taking a machete to the middle class, to minorities, to the environment. This is no defense of President Donald Trump. But instead of creating this media circus and giving anonymous sources, anonymous quotes to Bob Woodward, instead of writing anonymous op-eds for the New York Times, which honestly, journalistically speaking, is totally absurd. It is totally absurd for the New York Times. You could hate Trump all you want, but if somebody feels so strongly, if I'm a journalist and somebody feels so strongly that the president is not fit to lead, that the president is mentally unstable, that's what the piece says, then they need to put their name to it. Because I don't know what he or she's motivations are. It's a slippery slope when you're starting to give anonymous senior administration officials, which, by the way, anonymous senior administration officials are the same ones that were feeding the New York Times bullshit about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Anonymous officials have been the same ones feeding the New York Times and the Washington Post. There's no surveillance of U.S. citizens. Anonymous officials are the same ones that have been feeding the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, and all of these. There's no deep state. There's no deep state. So you can have two things at once. But my question is very simple. And again, this isn't me saying I want this, which I'm going to get to in a minute. This is me saying, what is it if let's just for argument's sakes, there's been enough books, there's been enough sources that have said, Mattis thinks he's an idiot, Sessions thinks he's an idiot, Mnuchin thinks he's an idiot, Pence thinks he's an idiot, all of them think he's unstable. Well, there's something called the 25th Amendment. Okay? The 25th Amendment, if a president is medically unable to perform his duties, it was spoken about with Ronald Reagan when people started seeing signs of dementia. If the president is physically unable, mentally unable, you can exercise the 25th Amendment, which I'll read it very quick. This is a decent explanation. Here we go. The answer lies in Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution. The amendment states that if for whatever reason the vice president and a majority of sitting cabinet secretaries decide that the president is, quote, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, they can simply put that down in writing and send it to two people, the Speaker of the House and the Senate's President pro tem. Then the vice president would immediately become acting president and take over all the president's powers. Let that sink in. One vice president and any 8 cabinet officers can theoretically decide to knock the president out of power at any time. If the president wants to dispute this move, he can, but then it would be up to Congress to settle the matter with a vote. A 2/3 majority in both houses would be necessary to keep the vice president in charge. If that threshold isn't reached, the president would regain his powers. So, and again, I don't want to harp on this all day because there's more important stories. So I'm going to try to make this as quickly as I can. So then it comes down to a question of actual political courage, which Republicans don't have and the majority of Democrats don't have. My next topic is about one who does have, Bernard Sanders, who, thank God, finally someone has taken it to the corporate welfare state, and Jeff Bezos and the Waltons in particular. And share this video. Let's get it out to more people. Reminder, this is a super chat if you want to contribute. We're going to launch our GoFundMe next week. So you have, presumably, if all this is true, which I think it is, no doubt about it, Matt has called him a moron with a 5th grade style. Sessions has called him an idiot. Many people in his administration have called him unfit, mentally unstable, on and on and on. If they feel this way, why don't they just invoke the 25th Amendment? Why is that? Why do you think they won't invoke the 25th Amendment? You would think if they're leading the resistance, not the fake progressive resistance that the Hillary Clinton crowd is leading, but the Trump resistance from within, why is it, if they feel this way, why are they writing anonymous op-eds? Why are they giving anonymous quotes to Bob Woodward? If the president is such a danger, and I think he possibly is a danger, why don't they invoke the 25th Amendment? Could it be that Trump would protest it? Could it be that it would go to then a Congress scared of their own shadow when it comes to Trump? Scared of facing the new Republican base, which is the Trump voter? Scared that if a Congress would vote to remove 2/3 of the Congress, would vote to remove a President Trump, that they would lose re-election, that they would have no political future? Could it be that these officials feel it is time to invoke the 25th Amendment, but we don't want to hurt the Republican Party. We don't want to have them to have to face those votes because they are either going to go against the cabinet, who they're all in one big circle jerk together, Mike Pence, Paul Ryan, our BFF. McConnell, same thing. Don't give me this bullshit. And again, I actually, which I'm about to get to, I would be very cautious. Speak with the people in Indiana about let's get rid of him and bring in Mike Pence. If you remember my reporting when I was at the Young Turks in Indiana, from East Chicago to female reproductive rights to religious zealotry, Mike Pence is a more competent, less awful sounding and tweeting religious zealot. He is a Christian fundamentalist. If you're afraid of Roe versus Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court, well, guess who would lead the charge? President Mike Pence. If you're afraid of women's reproductive rights being on the chopping block, Mike Pence would lead the charge. Are you aware that in the state of Indiana, Mike Pence made it so that women who had miscarriages as early as a month would actually have to take, and I'm sorry to be graphic, would have to take what was removed from them, mostly cells, and bury it? That was something Mike Pence was trying to push? The media would be fine with it. Kimberly Schwanke says, Jordan was in my dream last night. So weird. Kimberly, I dream of you every night. And also, Super Chat contributions help me dream. I dream of people who leave Super Chat contributions. Hint, hint. Gene says, Indiana here. Pence is a douchebag. So everybody wants to say, 25th Amendment, he's mentally stable. Well, you want to bring in the one who's if Trump's mentally unstable, you want to bring in the one who is very mentally stable to the point and very competent? You want Obamacare repealed? That will actually happen under Pence because he knows how to legislate. He was a congressman before he was a governor, before he was a vice president. So I'm not, Hillary Clinton voters, they were always about we need to be pragmatic, lesser of two evils. Well, in this particular case, I actually think Pence, by the record of actual things that could get passed, not by the way he talks, not by the things he tweets, not by the hysteria he creates, because that is Trump, but the way that a Pence would not only legislate executively, because executive orders would be passed, but would actually be able to get things moving through the House, and a media who would not resist Mike Pence, because Mike Pence is one of them. He's part of the club, the Washington club. The media, think of George Bush. The media helped him pass his war because he sounded good. With the bullhorn after 9/11, we'll come wherever they are. We will find you. Media propped him up. As long as Pence doesn't tweet bizarre things, doesn't say bizarre things, and keeps us at endless war for oil, and keeps the deregulation and the tax cuts coming to the parent companies of CNN and MSNBC and New York Times owners, they'll be fine with Pence. But the point is, enough of the hysteria. If the Trump administration officials honestly believe this man is mentally unstable, that on any given day that he might pull the nuclear button without mental stability going into his decision, then they owe it to the country to invoke the 25th Amendment. Because if it's that severe, then the country's at stake, possibly the world. FDR was mentally stable and he bombed Japan. Well, some could argue he was mentally unstable, but you get my point. But, literally, Detroit just shut down. Detroit schools just shut off its water because they found high, insane lead levels. Citywide. Water shut off. This is our children. Not a mention. Not a mention in the corporate media. Bob Woodward wrote a book about Trump and people call him an idiot and a moron. When does the insanity end? And I know some people will be mad and say, Jordan, you're minimizing it. I'm not minimizing it. I'm saying if they really feel this way, if people are feel it's so important that they have to speak with Bob Woodward for his book, if anonymous officials feel it's so important and so critical, and he's so mentally unstable that we have to write op-eds for the New York Times and not put our names at it, then we have reached the point where it's time to put up or shut the fuck up. And let's start covering real issues. I think Trump is unstable. But you want to know the difference between Bush and Trump? One was stable, but he was a religious zealot, Bush. He thought God was telling him to go to Iraq, so you could argue he was mentally unstable. And the media showered with him affection. Why did they shower him with affection and prop up Bush's war? Because he sounded normal. Because he didn't tweet. Because he sounded like an American president. Because he wasn't outside the box. He cut your taxes for the rich. He deregulated. And he kept us at war, which the media loves, all three of them. At this point, I don't understand the rehabilitation of George Bush, because I don't think it's even comparable, the damage that George Bush did in 8 years. So in his presidency to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has done some terrible things, but we have not launched a war yet that has killed 4,000 American soldiers and hundreds of thousands killed or wounded in Iraq. The economy, I think it's going to have a recession, and I could get to that another day. The student loan bubble is near popping. You think the housing bubble was bad in 2008? By the way, we're about to hit the 10-year anniversary of that. That won't get covered. The 10-year anniversary of the global economic crash brought on by the very bankers that Barack Obama, another lovely guy, didn't tweet, sounded like one of everybody, and then droned and killed innocent people around the world, let the bankers off scot-free, did nothing to even attempt to tackle income inequality. I talked to African Americans all over the country, did nothing to invest in inner cities, allowed police to basically massacre black people all over the country. I said this while I was at the Young Turks, and I say it now. It is very easy to be fearful and respond viscerally based on how people sound, what they say, how they say it. It is not normal for a president to be tweeting about Roseanne Barr. It is not normal for a president to be talking about his big button in nuclear threats on Twitter. None of this is normal, and I'm not minimizing it. But literally, we're going to have a media circus now for probably a week, because Woodward's book is coming out. Who knows? The New York Times is giving op-eds to anonymous senior administration officials. This will be talked about for days and days and days, and then it all's a domino effect. But you know what? Detroit schools just shut off the water, no coverage. Water protectors are literally getting arrested on property that they have permission to be on down at the Bayou Bridge. Pipeline resistance. I tweeted out a video yesterday. I'm going to show it to you tonight. A water protecting getting violently arrested while she's on property that not only she and other water protectors have written permission to be on from the landowner, but Energy Transfer Partners, the oil company trying to ram the pipeline through, Dakota Access Pipeline, they were owners of that. And now they are trying to ram this pipeline through, which is also going to be used for exports, not energy independence. No coverage of that. I mean, I could go on. You see any coverage of Bernie Sanders proposing a bill today, which is my next topic, to try and actually end corporate welfare? No. So that's all I got to say about this. If they want to put up, then put up. Invoke the 25th Amendment and then let the circus begin. But enough with the anonymous sources and the anonymous op-eds. I don't care if it's Trump or Obama or anyone. No journalistic outlet, and you could quote me on this, no journalistic outlet should be giving people anonymous op-eds. Who the hell knows who he or she is? Who the hell knows what their motivations are? Who the hell knows? We don't, because we don't know who it is. moving on from one ridiculous story to one. Oh, wait. One more thing. I'll just play you this. Congressman Luis Gutierrez on the House floor.
I have written a letter to the President of the United States, which I'm sending today, that carries a simple message on behalf of the American people. Mr. President, it is time for you to resign the office of the presidency for the good of the United States and her people. It has become clear to Congress and the American people, especially those of us who do not exclusively watch sanitized versions of the news on the president's most supportive media outlets, that for decades the president led a vast criminal enterprise that went on to engage in criminal activity during the 2016 campaign for the White House and engaged in criminal activity since taking the office of president. The fact is clear. The president is the target of multiple criminal investigations on several fronts. Number one, the violation of federal election laws, including the failure to report payments and contributions as required under campaign finance law.
So I'm not going to play that whole thing. My point to you, at least whether you agree with them or not, at least Gutierrez is taking action. He sent a letter and asked for his resignation. If congressmen or women are going to call for action, you need to resign, whether it's for political purposes or not. Then these Trump administration officials, you're not part of a resistance if you're an anonymous resistance. You're not part of a resistance if you're simply gonna, anonymously, talk shit in a book or on the pages of the New York Times. That's not a resistance. That's kind of like Mean Girls in high school. I did watch Mean Girls and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Not too proud to say so. So I'm not saying one way or the other. I think Pence is more dangerous. I've told you why. I will elaborate more on that in a more prepared report tomorrow, and I will go through the list. But everybody in the media needs to shut up, report on real news. I know it's not going to happen, but this is my early Christmas wish, and I'm Jewish. Everybody needs to focus on real issues. So, from one terrible, stupid story to Senator Bernard Sanders. Senator Bernard Sanders. I've reported on this last week. He is finally saying we should stop paying so Jeff Bezos could have more gold toilets. So the Walton family could have another yacht or two this year. So that the owners of McDonald's and Burger King and all these corporate stooge criminals, if you ask me, can hoard money. This is not even the Gilded Age anymore. This is above the Gilded Age, what we're seeing. Jeff Bezos is, I think it was something crazy, like $64,000 every 10 seconds this man is making. $260 million a day in stock. While his workers, a large portion of his workers, are on food stamps or Medicaid or other subsidies. And it goes with Walmart, it goes with Burger King, fast food. I remember when I was at the Young Turks, I interviewed a Burger King worker down in Alabama as they were fighting for minimum wage. Works at Burger King, she's on food stamps. And she works 40 hours, sometimes more. So Paul Ryan, Mr. The takers who are taking Medicare and taking Medicare and Social Security and food stamps and subsidized housing. These takers. Oh, by the way, we are close to 15,000 subscribers on this channel. We launched end of February, and we're almost at 15,000 subscribers in a very, very suppressed setting. YouTube has suppressed the hell out of us. Half the people don't even know when I'm live. So if you're not subscribed, what the hell's wrong with you, first of all? Secondly, if you're not subscribed, press the subscribe button. But as a gift to me and Jen, please tell your friends, tell your mother, tell the mailman, tell whoever. I don't care if your dog presses subscribe. Get us to 15,000. End of this week, I think we could do it. So let me play you a little bit of a real courageous person, not these Trump officials who are anonymously, resisting for the benefit of the country. Let's play Bernard Sanders.
We have three people in America, the three wealthiest people, who own more wealth than the bottom 50%. And we have the absurd situation that 52% of all new income is going to the top 1%. And I think it is fair to say that the American people are tired of having to subsidize the wealthiest people in this country who are paying wages that are just so low that people can't get by. And let me just give you a few examples of what we are talking about. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is the wealthiest person on earth. I think, as I understand it, his wealth went up by $2 billion yesterday. Amazon had a good day. And he's worth about $168 billion. Not bad. Since the beginning of this year, his wealth has increased by about $260 million every single day. Meanwhile, Mr. Bezos continues to pay thousands of his Amazon employees wages that are so low that they must rely on food stamps, Medicaid, or subsidized housing in order to survive. Programs that are financed by the middle class of this country. According to a recent report from New Food Economy, 1 out of 3 Amazon workers in Arizona and 2,400 in Pennsylvania and Ohio need food stamps in order to feed their families. Further, according to a November 2016 study by the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, warehouse workers at Amazon are paid 9% less than the industry average for comparable work nationally. 18% less than average in Seattle, 19% less than average in Atlanta, and 22% less than average in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Last week, I asked Amazon workers to share their experiences with my office about wages and working conditions at Amazon. Many hundreds of them responded. I want to very briefly share with you a very few of the responses. A former Amazon worker from Tennessee said, and I quote, "I worked at Amazon for 5 months at $11 an hour as a full-time employee. I was on SNAP, that's the food stamp program, and had to live with my parents and my 3 children because I could not afford to find a safe location for my family." A current Amazon employee in Illinois said, and I quote, "I work 40 hours a week at $13.25 an hour. I have 2 kids to support. I receive $90 of food stamps. I don't make enough to eat lunch at work, so I split a protein shake between 2 meals to make sure my children eat," end of quote. Another Amazon worker said, quote, "When I started working for Amazon, my family was receiving welfare, such as food stamps and Medicaid. I'm still receiving those benefits because I make so little money, even though I work 40 hours a week." Former Amazon worker from North Carolina said, quote, "Been on food stamps the entire time I've been working at Amazon. Back-breaking labor, terrible pay, even worse working conditions." In April, Amazon reported that half of its workforce makes less than $28,500 a year, about $13.60 an hour. Now, even that figure is misleading because it doesn't include an estimated 40% of Amazon's workforce who are employed through temporary staffing firms. As we speak, Integrity Staffing Solutions, Amazon's major temp agency, is posting a job, as we speak right now, on its website at Amazon's warehouse in Columbia, South Carolina, for, quote, up to $11.25 an hour. On this very same website, you can find job postings at Amazon for up to $12.25 in Phoenix, up to $12 an hour in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and up to $13.25 an hour in Middletown, Delaware. In other words, the wealthiest person in the world is advertising jobs that pay workers wages that are so low that they have to go on food stamps, Medicaid, or subsidized housing. And that's wrong, And that has got to change, and that's why Representative Connor and I are here today. But let me be very clear that this discussion is not just about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. The Walton family of Walmart is the wealthiest family in the country with a net worth of nearly $175 billion. One family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. Meanwhile, just like Amazon, Walmart pays its workers wages that are so inadequate that many of them are forced to depend on public assistance.
There you have it. Hate to cut off Mr. Sanders, but it went a little long. I want to give you the meat of what the bill is that he's proposing. So let me read this to you. Bernie Sanders' criticism of Amazon peaked Wednesday as he and Congressman Ro Khanna introduced legislation to tax corporations for every dollar that their low-wage workers receive in government health care benefits or food stamps. The bill, pointedly called the Stop Bad Employers by Zeroing Out Subsidies, oh, I love this, or Bezos Act. So you see that? Stop Bad Employers by Zeroing Out Subsidies, or Bezos Act, is aimed at shaming companies like Amazon and Walmart, whose workers rely on public assistance. For months, Sanders has targeted Amazon, juxtaposing the wealth of CEO Bezos with reports that Amazon warehouse workers are paid less than industry averages and rely on food stamps. Bezos is the richest man in the world with a net worth of more than $168 billion. Quote, our legislation gives large, profitable employers a choice. Pay workers a living wage or pay for the public assistance programs their low-wage employees are forced to depend on, Sanders said of the proposed law. For example, if an Amazon worker received $2,000 in food stamps, Amazon would be taxed $2,000 to cover that cost. Amazon has previously called the Vermont Independent's claims about working conditions at its fulfillment centers inaccurate and misleading, blah, 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 bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. So there's many reasons that this is incredible. But first, let's get out of the way the reality is. This bill is not going anywhere. Bernie Sanders knows it's not going anywhere. You have a Trump extremist Republican Party. And frankly, if I'm keeping it real, if Barack Obama was president right now and you had both houses, Senate and the House, Democrat, I don't know if this bill would pass because the Democratic Party is just as in the tank for corporate welfare and corporations as the Republican Party. Again, the Democratic Party is the Republican Party light, and they'll allow women reproductive rights. They don't want to ban religions. They're a nicer version of the Republican Party. That's what the Democratic Party is. So let's not kid ourselves that this is going to get through. It's not. So just to put that out there. But why it is really brilliant, and I'm not saying this as somebody who personally supports Bernie Sanders. I'm open about that. I do. I'm saying this because it goes both ways. First of all, on one end, it is the morally right thing to do. It's also the economically. So you got morally, it's the right thing to do. Why in the world should one or two or three private business owners make hundreds of millions of dollars per day while their workers are on food stamps? Bernie talks about the moral economy. Well, this is the face of the immoral economy. So morally, it's right. On the second end, politically, it is unlosable. And I'll tell you why. The Republicans are all about getting rid of welfare. The Republicans are all about getting people off public assistance. The Republicans are all about going after Medicaid. The Republicans are all about going after food stamps. The Republicans are all about going after Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, Medicaid, subsidized housing, heat and gas subsidies, you name it, they want to get rid of it. Well, Bernie's giving them a way to do that. You say we need to reduce the reliance on the government, on Medicaid, on Medicare, on Social Security. Well, this is a perfect way. Let the Republicans, let Donald Trump, if it's Bernie first Trump, let them argue for not touching Jeff Bezos' money. Let them argue for not touching Bill Walton's money. Do you want to know why that wouldn't work? Because I've met the Trump voter in America. They don't like Jeff Bezos. They don't like Walmart hoarding money. You want to know why? Because a lot of them work at Walmart. That is why Trump and Bernie, the only crossover they had was economically, because Trump was serving up fake populism. Trump won. I covered 40 to 50 Trump rallies and events. Trump won largely on a message that he was going to take it to the corporate state. Remember, he used to go hardcore after Goldman Sachs at these rallies. The supporters ate it up. Because these Rust Belt supporters of Trump, they didn't like the bailouts in 2008. Hugely unpopular, even among Republican voters. They don't like Jeff Bezos or Amazon, the corporate welfare that go to these corporations, because I've spoken, this isn't anecdotal, it's not like I spoke with 3 people. I've spoken with tons of Republicans who are against this. This is no longer like the Bob Dole, Mitch McConnell Republican base. This is a base that on one end hates Mexicans and Muslims, but on the other end hates corporate welfare. That's really what the Republican base is now. Trump has convinced them that Mexicans and Muslims and the other is to blame, but they bought his populist message, which was a bunch of baloney, as we know. It is I'm looking for the term. It is a no-lose political position. If Bernie Sanders is on stage with Donald Trump, if Bernie Sanders is on stage with Mike Pence, who knows what's going to happen? Let Mr. Populist, President Trump, defend not taxing Amazon or Walmart or any of these companies the cost of their workers' food stamps. It makes perfect sense. And I think, honestly, that political cowardice, because Trump won't do it, because he's going to be taking from those donors. Trump could tweet against Amazon. Trump could tweet against the Waltons. Trump could tweet about, what's his face? He once tweeted against Sheldon Adelson and then took $30 million from him. Trump tweets, Trump says things, he doesn't mean any of it. He'll take the money faster than you could blink. I am telling you, and I said this before and I'll say it now, I think this was a missed opportunity against Hillary Clinton, going against corporate welfare. Bernie didn't talk about this specifically enough. He didn't have a message and a bill like he has now, but whatever, that's the past, this is now. This is a political winner. To win progressives, which he doesn't have to win. To win independents, which he did wildly well with in the Democratic primaries. He won almost every open primary state where independents can vote. And let me remind you, independents can vote for whoever they want in the general election. And this can win over Republican voters too. And I met a lot of Republican voters that if they did not vote for Donald Trump, Bernie was their man, second choice. And by the way, Jeff Bezos could say whatever the hell he wants. There is multiple reports from business media to progressive media pointing out the terrible working conditions, pointing out that Amazon wanted to put tracking bans on its workers to track productivity. Is this the Hunger Games now in America? And folks, I'm reminding you, I'm saying it one more time, this is a super chat. If you like what you're saying, and by the way, when we put out the GoFundMe next week, we're going to have a list of stories that we want to go cover. And unlike certain outlets, when we tell you what we're going to cover with the money, we're going to go do it. We're going to go cover those stories that we're asking you to help us get there. And one of those stories is going to Amazon country, going to factories, talking to workers. Even if we have to do it in silence and shadow their faces so that they don't lose their job. We are going to show you what Amazon is doing, because it's not just Amazon, it's the entire corporate welfare state. I told my parents, because my mother and father, they like Trump. They're good people. They're just misinformed. My mom was complaining about why should I pay for somebody else's health care? I said, Mom, do you realize how much money you're paying so Jeff Bezos could have gold toilets? Do you realize how much money you're paying so the Waltons could have 25,000 houses and yachts? Welfare is a fraction of what you're paying compared to corporate welfare. And that is an argument I think Bernie Sanders could make. And that's an argument I think Bernie Sanders wins. Yes, Johnny, don't even get me started on Monsanto. Jeffrey Hyde, Bezos wants to colonize another planet. I say, why don't you leave this planet, Jeff? Go colonize another planet. Leave this planet to us progressives. How about that? But again, I'm not just talking about stories we're going to cover. I'm telling you, that's specifically one story I want to go cover. If you remember at the Young Turks, when I was in Portland, Oregon, I showed you the houseless tent village. I want to do a lot more of that. I showed you the people living there. They were the working poor who are working full time but can't afford housing. I did a disappearing middle class tour with my former colleague Emma. We went through Detroit. We went through Steeltown, Pennsylvania. We went through parts of Cleveland, Ohio. We went through Wisconsin. These cities that I went to look like scenes out of The Walking Dead. We're going to keep doing it. We just need the funding to do it. And the funding is there. Look at the support that just flooded in for Abby Martin and Empire Files. Thankfully, I think their GoFundMe was over 40,000 or something. Desi Murgy says, name that outlet that won't do what it says it would with the money. Say it, Jordan. Jen, should I name the outlet? Jen, I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling like I should name outlets here. But I'm not going to. Because you want to know why? You want to know why, Desi Murgy? You know, there's a great thought leader. There's a great thought leader, and his name is Rafiki. Rafiki. If you ever watched The Lion King, he's the cute monkey, and he's a monkey, right? Yeah, and he slaps Simba with the stick. He says, Hakuna Matata, Hakuna Matata. The past is the past. The present is now, and the future is uncertain. So I will not name the outlet, but there are outlets that make promises and don't keep them. I'll leave it at that. So I'm on board with the Bezos Act. I will continue the coverage. It won't go anywhere in Congress. I'm keeping it real, but I'll report on it anyway. So I want to, moving from Bernie and that video, this is getting no attention, but it's one of the best things I've seen in corporate media. Want to know why? Because it was Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, has been banned from corporate media for years. Tara May starting the party with $2 in the super chats. More where this came from if you name outlets. Tara May, let me tell you, and I'm mad at you, Tara May, because now you've gotten me in the mood for tiramisu. I don't know why, but I read Tara May, and now I want tiramisu. Let me tell you something, Tara May. There is a story that will be coming out very soon, very soon. It's a massive story. It has policy implications and criminal implications. It's a story Jen and I have been working on for several months. And when that story comes out, and we have reason to think it will come out next month, October, we're talking. I will be naming outlets that stopped it from coming out. I'm not here to make friends in the corporate media. I will go against the corporate media when I have to. Even if that burns some bridges, I'll burn the bridge. Because I will always be honest with the audience, because that is how you get real loyalty. That is how you prove to people you and your colleagues, which will be at Status Quo, are the real deal. So I will be naming names that have stopped this story from coming out. So you see it. You wait, and thank you for the $2 in Super Chat. And if you're not feeling super today, you can become a Patreon. You could also contribute at paypal.me/statusquo. The links are on the bottom of the screen. Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, has been banned from corporate media for some time. writes about the empire, writes about the U.S. empire, the oligarchy, all these things. MSNBC must have been running low on hacks and puppets and Democratic establishment over Labor Day weekend because they invited Chris Hedges on. I want to watch this interview with you because I think it's so telling. I think it's so telling. And I'm going to stop and start it as we go. Let's play it.
President Trump is the symptom of what's wrong and not the disease. It's called America, the Farewell Tour. Joining me now, author Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and also host of On Contact, a show on Russian TV and network funded by the Russian government. Chris, thanks for your time. Let's start with this.
Sorry, got to stop it already. You're going to get mad at me because I'm going to keep starting this topic. You notice that they had to say, funded by the Russian government. MSNBC can't miss a beat on the McCarthyism. Funded by the Russian government. If we're keeping it real, neither could YouTube. All the RT videos, they got a little thing under, funded by the US government, funded by the Russian government. For CNN's channel, for MSNBC's channel, do they say CNN, MSNBC, which have lobbyists that lobby the parent companies for those networks, lobby the federal government for tax cuts and deregulation and subsidies? Is that in there on YouTube? Didn't think so. I continue.
Your provocative claims here, including that the country is facing the inevitable collapse of the American empire. So how do you back that up, and what do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, we've extended ourselves militarily 17 years now of warfare into conflicts that are futile, that we're not going to win, exhausting trillions of dollars while the country is being hollowed out from the inside, not only in terms of deindustrialization, but austerity and the orchestration of the largest wealth inequality in American history. And you can't maintain a democracy in an oligarchic system, and that goes all the way back to philosophers such as Aristotle. And the book focuses on the kinds of pathologies that are exhibited by a society in deep decay. The opioid crisis, gambling, sexual sadism, suicide, which are plaguing larger and larger segments of the country, and I think have political consequences. This kind of stagnation, as you pointed out, creates figures like Trump. And I covered the war in the former Yugoslavia. I was the Balkan bureau chief for the New York Times, and I watched the economic collapse of Yugoslavia vomit up figures like Radovan Karadzic and Slobodan Milosevic. So we have to address this social inequality, this dislocation, this alienation, what Durkheim, the sociologist, calls this anomy, or our problems are not going to go away, even with the impeachment of Trump.
We'll talk about that a little bit more when it comes to the political
Oh, I love this. I love this. Let's play it a little more.
ramifications in it too, Chris, because at a larger scope, yes, this is what you're touching on in your book. But here, in this where we're talking about, the John McCain funeral, the words coming out of it, President Trump in here too.
Okay, so do you notice something here, folks? First of all, let me tell you, because I worked at Fox News for a dark period in my life, and I worked at MSNBC. I've sat in control rooms. I know how these things work. She had a producer in her ear. Move on, move on, move on. Why? Because he was talking about income inequality. He was talking about social inequality. He was talking about American empire, oligarchy, and they were screaming in her ear, move on to the next, move on to the next, move on to the next. Do you see? Did the anchor ask a follow-up question about his literally reporting the facts on the record income inequality? Did the anchor ask a follow-up? Well, expand. What do you mean by the social inequality? That's interesting. What do you mean? Did the anchor ask a question about the endless wars we're at? Was there any follow-up on that? No. She was like an excited puppy. When you take her to the door, when you take the puppy to the dog park, as soon as he mentioned Trump, oh my God, she followed up with a Trump question, and on McCain and Trump, McCain and Trump. So yeah, you're inviting somebody on whose book is really about income inequality, the future demise of the American empire, because countries with this level of income inequality can't continue to be democracies. but the anchor simply moves on to Trump. Let's play some more.
Racism that's happening in Florida when it comes to the governor's race there, and that tone in this day and age, and basically when it comes to the past week, talk about the political ramifications of it in that sense.
Well, you saw with the McCain funeral, really at its core, an appeal for civility, for a return to a political discourse grounded in mutual respect. And of course, this is what's happened. This is what demagogues. This is how demagogues speak. They speak in vulgarities, the way Trump does. They belittle others, and particularly the vulnerable, the weak. They are consumed by this kind of narcissism. Everything in the world is seen through the lens of what's either good for them or what isn't good for them, who is loyal to them and who isn't. And I found that kind of poignant with the McCain funeral because this is the new world. And as you correctly point out, it's not limited to Trump. There are all sorts of Trump mini-me's in Florida and everywhere else who have descended into this kind of gutter talk and appeals to racism and Islamophobia and homophobia. And it's not just the United States. This is what neoliberalism has writ large, what corporate capitalism has writ large throughout much of the industrialized world. We just saw in a German city 8,000 marchers led by neo-Nazis walking through the streets. We've seen Hungary with Orban, Brexit, the rise of Boris Johnson, figures like Boris Johnson. So it's not...
Did you hear that? That's the first time she tried to cut him off. Let's keep going.
Not limited to the United States.
Sure, and if you take
Just cut him off. So he moves back to income. He moves back to income inequality. He moves back to resistances to the same thing in other countries: economic despair, economic oppression, income inequality, social inequality. Cuts him off right away. Cuts him off right away. Continue.
history, though, in essence, a history of this country, and you look at its past, and you look at the darker moments, and you look at the challenges, civil unrest in the 60s, Vietnam War, and we can go on a list here. We've seen it through. We've come out of it. And who's not to say that that couldn't be the same?
Wait a minute. Who's come out of it? Who's come out of it? Have you come out of the financial crash? Have you come out okay of the financial crash? Have you come out okay of all these wars and all the money you as a taxpayer are spending? Have you come out okay of deindustrialization and sending all these jobs through trade deals to China and Mexico? Who's come out okay in America? Certainly not black people. Certainly not veterans who fought these fucking idiotic wars in Vietnam and Iraq. Who's come out okay? I continue. Or Chris Hedges, excuse me, Chris Hedges continues.
When it comes to this time now, why it seems like if you see it as bleak, are we going to stay bleak?
Well, because the foundation of the American economy is no longer manufacturing. Our economy has been seized by Wall Street speculators.
So you think the economy is behind it all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was an article in today's New York Times about the fracking industry being the next bubble. Well, we've got student debt.
Okay, I want you to really pay attention to this part, because this was the most telling part. Really pay attention to her. Pay attention to what he's saying, and then pay attention to how she reacts.
Wall Street speculators.
So you think the economy is behind it all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was an article in today's New York Times about the fracking industry being the next bubble. Well, we've got student debt. We've got the economy is extremely
First time she tries to end it.
And you saw with the tax cuts, these major corporations went and bought back their own stock. So because their compensation packages are tied to stock, or they hoarded it. They didn't invest it into the country. They didn't create jobs.
Second time she tried to end it.
This is what Karl Marx calls fictitious capital, and we all know where it's going to end. And another economic crisis.
Okay.
There's no
Third
plan
time
B.
she tried to end it.
interest rates any more than they've already lowered them.
Chris Hedges, thank you for your time and perspective.
Finally.
Now,
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, you cannot make this shit up. Whenever in that interview, at any point in that interview, it wasn't like obnoxious cutting off, like Bill O'Reilly or Chris Matthews, like talking over the person. It was the subtle, oh, okay, oh, all right, okay, all right. Like trying to get him to stop talking so she could interject. But why? Did you notice that she did not interject at any point when Chris Hedges was talking about Trump and the racism and the gutter talk? Oh no, that's allowed. That's allowed on MSNBC. That's allowed on CNN. And guys, let's share this video because we're now at 1:30, and this is this is a super chat, and let's get these numbers up. Share the video if you can. Leave a few bucks. Again, we're launching the GoFundMe on Monday next week. That is if I were to teach a class on corporate media and its horrendous effects on democracy and public information and the public's right to know, that would be one class, probably the first, because that is they had a guest on that they almost never have on because they don't want those facts to be on their air. They don't want facts about fracking to be on corporate media air. They don't want facts about the total unsustainable income inequality we have in this country that is unparalleled in most countries around the world, and they don't want it to be known that at a certain point the proletariat's going to revolt. Now, let me be specific. I'm not talking about violence, but at a certain point, people have breaking points, and you're going to have real protests in this country. I'm not talking about protests on a Saturday against guns. I'm talking about people in the streets at some point. Every single time, Chris Hedges started shifting the income inequality or economic oppression or the oligarchy, she kept interjecting, And I'm not making fun of this particular anchor because it would have been the same way with anyone, man or woman. If you're a corporate anchor, they would have known we can't have these things said on our airwaves. Income inequality is a talking point that we'll talk about maybe bi-yearly on MSNBC or CNN, but we don't actually allow it. We don't actually allow it, like as a thought. We don't allow them to actually expand. You want to know why? Who is NBC and MSNBC owned by? Comcast. What does Comcast do? They were the leading force behind net neutrality. What does Comcast do? They have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to lobby Congress for tax cuts and deregulation. Gee, I wonder why they didn't cover Bernie Sanders on NBC and MSNBC. Lori, thanks for the $5. Love you covering Hedges, who somehow ended up on the MSNBC CIA. Lori, I should pay you $5. I love that. MSNBC CIA, I'm going to use that. And actually got a few words of truth in their corporatist airways. I was shocked. They must have had several cancellations on Labor Day weekend, because that was Labor Day weekend, and the choice was we go dark or we bring in this raving lunatic socialist. So they went with, well, we can't go dark. Call Chris Hedges. I love Chris Hedges. There are very few journalists I respect in the media, and he's one of them. He's done some amazing work reporting from war zones. He has a right, and he knows what he's talking about, and he has a right to say it. And you can find him. He does columns, I believe, at Truth Dig. I love Chris Hedges. I'd love to interview him too. But it's so striking, and the reason I showed it to you is because literally they probably figured after, because I know how producers all the time say we shouldn't have had him on or her on. That was a bad booking, whatever. They literally tried to cut him off whenever he spoke truth. They literally tried to cut him off when he talked about income inequality, when he talked about oligarchy, when he talked about the lack of we have no manufacturing in this country, alluding to the trade deals. When he talked about fracking and the bubble that is in. Anything pro-worker, pro-truth, they interjected. They interjected. And I'm going to see, when Ty edits this, I'm going to see if he could boost the volume a little bit on her. She was kind of trying to interrupt him. It wasn't that loud, but you could hear it visibly. I hope you heard it. So that was my instruction on the corporate media today. And unfortunately, folks, tonight I have to end on a bad note, a bad story that you're not going to see in most places, but I believe I need to show it to you. So one of the stories that's going to be on the list for our GoFundMe, we're going to launch a GoFundMe next week. Ty is working on the video for it. We're going to have stories we want to go cover. One of them is going to be I keep fucking this up. The Bayou Bridge pipeline fight, which, if you've been paying attention on Facebook, if you've been paying attention on Twitter, they are arresting water protectors and journalists left and right now, who are literally, they're arresting them. And I have spoken with journalists who have been arrested down there, and I've spoken with water protectors. They have written permission from the landowners to be on the land that they are being arrested on. They have written permission to be on the land that they are being arrested on. So I want to show you this video. I believe it was from yesterday, I believe. Here we go.
We need you here now. We need you now. Help. Please don't put my hands on you. Please don't put my hands on my back on that water. Your hands don't get like that. Ow. Hey, pressure point. Stop there. Ow. Hold on. She is not resisting. Stop rubbing her.
I'm going to play that one more time. I'm going to try to find it a little bigger. So work with me for 1 second. Do 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 do. I'm on the corporate suppressor, Facebook. It seems to think that they can they're the arbiters of what's trustworthy and untrustworthy news, aka corporate censors. One of the beginning signs of fascism is censorship. So that's beginning now. Let me get the video so you have a little clearer quality. Hold with me. Stay with me now. All right, this is taking too long. I'll just play it again from Twitter. Here we go.
Stop talking her! We need you here now! We need you now! Help! Please don't put my hands on you. Please don't put my hands on my back on that water. Your hands don't get like that. Ow! Hey, pressure point! Stop there! Ow! Hold on. She is not resisting. Stop rubbing her.
So, as you can see, they are violently arresting water protectors down there. Those water protectors are resisting the Bayou Bridge pipeline, another unnecessary, pointless pipeline endangering several waterways and indigenous land down in the bayou in Louisiana. There is they call it a floating water protectors camp down there. Thank you, Exhausted 11. Jordan, how's Ty? Any updates on tree sitters? Ty's good. He's actually coming to New York, I believe, tomorrow. So you'll be seeing Ty. And we got a lot of plans, Ty and I. Ty's working on a few things for our launch, so that's why you haven't seen him on air. But Ty's good. Any updates on tree sitters? Yes, there are more tree sits going on in Virginia. I'll cover that tomorrow. Thank you for reminding me. There's more tree sits launching in Virginia to try and stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So you have this pipeline, which is it's supposed to be the last piece of the Dakota Access Pipeline that will get it to export terminals in the Gulf. It's I believe, a crude oil pipeline. I'll have to double check that, but it is a crude oil pipeline. So it's unreal. They are on land that they have permission to be on. This is very similar to the Dakota Access Pipeline. Land that a lot of water protectors were arrested in, I believe in February of 2017, on that hill, if you remember. It later came out that Energy Transfer Partners, the oil company that was owning the Dakota Access Pipeline, who owns the Bayou Bridge Pipeline, didn't even own the land that these water protectors like Chase Iron Eyes were arrested on. But Chase Iron Eyes was charged with felonies. Had to spend countless money on his legal defense. I believe those charges have been dropped. But now you have water protectors and journalists. I did an interview with a journalist, I believe, last week. Karen Savage was her name. Go check out that video. Just Google Jordan Chariton and Karen Savage. She's a journalist down there. She was arrested and now charged with a felony for the crime of reporting on land that she had written permission to be on. So if you think that the North Dakota police were bought off, which, by the way, the Trump administration gave North Dakota law enforcement, I believe $15 million for reimbursements for their law enforcement, aka domestic police terrorism on unarmed American citizens and indigenous people. Also, Energy Transfer Partners paid legal law enforcement, I think it was also $15 million. So the oil company paid back the police department that was basically doing the oil company's works. You know where else? You know what that's called? That's called the public state merging with the corporate state. You know what they call that? Let me tell you, for people in the nosebleeds. Fascism. That's fascism. And that's what's going down in the bayou, folks. They are trying to exercise their First Amendment. They're trying to exercise their First Amendment. And they are being arrested on land that they have permission to be on, which, by the way, the landowners have said Energy Transfer Partners does not have permission to be on their property. The oil company does not have permission to be on the property that these water protectors are peacefully demonstrating against. So I'm going to bring you to the page here so you could see what the water protectors are asking for. Again, if I had the funding right now to get down there, I would. We just don't have it right now. So that's part of what the GoFundMe is about. But let me get you to this page. Work with me for a second. Damn, this works slow. Hold on. So this is I'm going to totally mispronounce it, the Luau Est La Vie camp, no Bayou Bridge, and that means water is life, I believe. And let me read you their post. Before I went on air, three out of the four imprisoned were released from jail. This is a picture. They were held on $61,500 bail. You see the pictures of the one, I believe that was Sherry, who I showed you before, getting violently arrested. Another gentleman, I do not know his name, with the eye patch. They say bail has been set at a total of $63,500 for the 4 water protectors arrested yesterday. All 4 are facing felony, trumped up felony charges. And then they have their donate tab. These protectors were peacefully stopping illegal construction of the Bayou Bridge pipeline in the oh God, I'm going to mispronounce this one too. I think it's Atchafalaya Basin, when they were charged and violently attacked by police and workers from Energy Transfer Partners. Let me remind you, as they do here, we had permission, they had permission to be on the land from the landowner, and we were breaking no laws. But Energy Transfer Partners does not have a legal right to build on that land. So if you want more information, you could go to their page. Again, it's not even going to pretend to try and pronounce this right. Leao Est La Vie Camp, No Bayou Bridge. Loa, what? Loe La Vie. Thank you, Jennifer. And Jen's off camera tonight. She's not doing so well. She's been sick for a little bit. But she's rehabbing in the comfort of New York. So she'll be back soon. But this, it's so great that we're talking about, Brett Kavanaugh and all these people on their high horse about the rule of law and judges, their politics can't play a part because we are a law and order country. Trump says it, law and order, unless your peaceful assemblance. Chris in Dallas says Jordan is a hunk. Chris, I am lonely these days. You're a hunk back. It's a law and order country as long as you don't screw with our oil. It's a law and order country as long as you don't screw with our big oil, fossil fuel donors. It's a law and order country as long as you don't breathe near a pipeline construction. It's a law and order country as long as you don't exercise the First Amendment, which is your constitutional right, near any pipeline, near any uranium mine, near any nuclear power plant. You could protest all you want away from our oil. Endo, corporate law for corporate order. Bingo. Bingo. We live, and this predates Trump. We live in a police state. We live in the United States of oil. We live in the United Corporations of America. Donald Trump is a menace. He is a danger, but it didn't start with Donald Trump, and it ain't going to end after Donald Trump unless we make it end. Part of that is journalism. We need more reporters down there. We need more reporters to cover the Line 3 opposition in Minnesota. We need more reporters to cover the opposition in Virginia against the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which Jen and I were there. My first reporting trip this year as an independent journalist, not with TYT, was covering those tree protests in Virginia as a totally unnecessary natural gas pipeline is being rammed up the most dense slopes in America, which poses catastrophe to the people living there and the waterways. We need more reporters to expose what's going on because you cannot get protests, you cannot get actual change, you cannot get people on the ground or movement on social if half the people, actually 75% of the people, have no fucking idea what's going on in this country. Most Democrats don't know what's going on, most Republicans don't know what's going on, and most independents don't know what's going on. That's what we're trying to do. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. We're going to launch that GoFundMe next week. We're going to also try to do a Patreon only call, a video call this weekend for patrons. So I'll be doing my video call this weekend. We'll send out an email invite to all to my whole email list, which, by the way, if you are not signed up for my email list, which will become the status quo email list, you waiting for a bus? You're waiting for a bus, folks? There's the link. Go to jordanchariton.com. Sign up for my email list. We'll be sending emails for dates for our video call with patrons and when we launch the GoFundMe. If every single person can contribute to that GoFundMe, whatever you can contribute, we will get to our goal of getting back out in the field and covering more of these stories on the ground where we need to be. Thank you for watching. Share this video. And God bless destruction of the United Corporations of America. Good night. We're fucked.